Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 5 of the JSN Podcast. I know it's been a while, but boys, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Jay, as per
Don't call me
usual.
boy.
It's been a while. Also, yeah, Nico's not wrong.
By the way, I won my game of solitaire, so I can put it away now.
Yeah.
I'm Nico.
Wow, this is already a train wreck like usual. But
It
today,
is
guys,
really a train wreck.
today we're gonna be talking about Parasite, Oscar-winning movie of 2019, first foreign language film. So, well, what do you guys think about it? Having watched it recently / not recently, cough Nico.
No, I think it's good.
Oh, word.
Oh, great. Okay. I don't know. I liked it. It scared me a little bit, and the random turn that it takes in the middle. I was a fan, but it was not a fan at the time.
Mm-hmm. By the way, this is a spoiler episode. We are.
I
going
feel
to...
like we cannot talk about this without spoiling it.
It's kind of like the movie's great because of the stuff that happens in it. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it and then come back and listen to this. But yeah.
If you
Also,
haven't
if you
seen
haven't
it,
seen it,
what
what
are
rock
you
are you living
doing?
under?
Or
Yeah.
you're a Republican.
God, oh my God, this was gonna get us demonetized. This already isn't
No, it
monetized,
won't.
but like
You know how YouTube is
Sorry, we're-
biased.
You
YouTube
know we're
won't
not making
care.
any money,
We go
right?
the other direction.
that's true. We aren't making any money, but all right.
Wait, YouTube doesn't even care about being about that direction of
Really? It
bias.
doesn't care about
No.
partisanship?
Nope.
Oh,
No,
interesting.
partisanship gets you more
only a
money.
certain kind of partisanship.
Oh,
Anyway,
I
this is not a
gotcha.
talk about YouTube. This is
Yeah.
talk about Parasite.
Alright, yeah. So yeah, I mean I also really enjoyed the movie. I actually went into it expecting it to be a lot it's gonna sound terrible, but I've tried to watch a lot of foreign language films, and they're only I can count on my hand the amount of foreign language films I've come out really enjoying. And so I didn't have great expectations going in, but I was blown away.
What foreign movies have you been watching?
Really, that's the problem. Not many. I guess my only other foreign language film you could say is Pan's Labyrinth. I love that movie.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And some Bollywood movies here and there, but there's that whole industry is really not great. Honestly, I'm sort of just a noob to the genre, so I should definitely I would definitely take recommendations. If any of y'all listening have recommendations for dope foreign language films, please drop them in the comments below, or just let me know, because that'd be sick.
I don't feel like it's just a genre. I mean, it's just
Oh yeah.
it's every I mean, it's a wide range of films. I mean, there are genres within it. I just think I don't know. I feel like this actually kind of I know we kind of just we're a bit vague with our opinions on the film, going it's good or
Yeah.
but no, it is a genuinely great movie. But I think this is also a good moment to segue into kind of the critical reception, how
Mm-hmm.
obviously it won Best Picture, and that was very big for the film industry and the Academy, because this was the first foreign language film to win the Best Picture award, which I think, in my opinion, is a really good thing, because this is one of the very few foreign language films that really does break into the mainstream, into the Western mainstream, that people who aren't people who like movies, but not people who love movies, they're talking about it and falling in love with it, which I think is really great. And I think it's opening the door for a lot of people to be oh, maybe I can watch more films with subtitles from South Korea or from around the world. And I think that's great for the film industry.
I totally agree. Honestly, I actually now that you said that, it actually resonates with me a lot. I noticed a lot of people who aren't even that big into film, or who otherwise wouldn't be interested in looking at films that were critically well received, or wouldn't consider themselves film connoisseurs or aficionados. Even they're wow, this movie was really sick, and I watched it because of its unique quality that got it so much traction. You know what I mean? Being a foreign language film that won Best Picture, so what's it called? Jay, I wanted to ask, do you how much do you keep up with what's it called, film criticism and that kind of stuff, and what do you think about a foreign language film getting such a high accolade?
I'm not too in touch with it personally. I don't know. What interests me about the situation is it's one of those cases where the general public seems to also like a movie that the that film critics liked, because over the past few years, a lot of like Oscar nominees, for example, just haven't been that relevant or well liked by the public, especially in terms of, for example, box office value.
Mhm.
So I find that interesting.
Yeah, I do too, and I actually think that like maybe I feel like the box or the accolade that like this film has been receiving has probably helped it in terms of commercial success because Nico, you
Oh,
actually went to
totally.
see it. You actually went to see it before it was like a crazy like famous movie and like before it got like super popular and won all these awards, right?
Yeah, yeah. I saw it in a at a pre-screening. It was much after it was in the festival circuit, but it was a couple weeks before it hit its theatrical release.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know anything about it going into it. I knew a bunch of people who wanted to go see it, and they were saying, "Oh, it's this film from South Korea. It's by Bong Joon-ho." And I know the director's name, and so I don't know. I was like, "Cool, whatever. I'll go see it. Like I'll go see any movie." And I didn't go in with the expectations that a lot of other people go into it with, and I was really blown away when I saw it. I don't know. Even seeing it without sort of that context, it was very apparent um, from the get go that it it was above and beyond like like any like the I could tell it was going to be something different and not just another foreign language film that's going to get shoved under the rug this year. Because in previous years there have been a lot of foreign language films that like when they first come out, critics will see and they'll be like, "Oh, this will be the thing that'll really break into the mainstream." I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like last year there was Roma, which
Roma,
I
yeah.
think did a pretty good job of it, but the discussion about it and the talk about it died down really quickly. And then we, I think also last year, or it might have been a year before, but there was a Burning, which was also from South Korea, and then even a few
Mm.
years before that was The Handmaiden. And those movies don't get talked about nearly enough, but and I still love them when I saw it. But even then, when I saw Parasite, I could tell there was going to be something different about the response to this one because it felt so relevant. I feel like with a
Yeah.
I don't know, it just felt really relevant both to Eastern audiences and to Western audiences,
Yeah.
and I could tell from the audience that really just resonated with everyone on some degree, which was truly incredible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that we were talking about earlier, that I found really interesting is, so Nico and I earlier were talking about how the language, barrier, right, and like us reading it in English subtitles. Obviously, I mean, I don't think any of us know, Korean, but reading in English subtitles, we kind of lose some of like the nuances and some of like the underlying messages. And like I just find it interesting how like this movie's themes and like the message it sends are able to prevail so well that even with that language barrier, even with us losing some of those nuances and some of those underlying details, it's still able to be so powerful. And I think it's something really great that this movie is able to accomplish. And I think that's why it was able to, land so well here in the West and like be able to win these awards. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah.
For what it's worth,
Yeah.
a few of my friends who speak Korean didn't experience it meaningfully differently
Interesting.
from, yeah. So it seemed like like as you're saying, a lot was translated.
Okay.
Well, I don't think there's like a meaningful difference, but there are there are definitely like certain subtleties and nuances that do get lost, and it doesn't like ruin the meaning. It's just like things that Western audiences won't pick up on. I know one that kind of became is more well known now because I know, for instance, there was a YouTube episode of Binging with Babish where he made Ramdan from the movie, which got pretty popular. But when they make Ramdan for the son of the Park family, um that is something that's really ironic and symbolic that Western audiences probably won't pick up on. That's the fact that the dish they're making is this dollar store ramen mixed with this expensive cut of beef. And that costs probably, I forget, but like at least $100 or something like that
Hmm.
from what I remember. But yeah, and Western audiences won't pick up on that. The movie works regardless, but it's just something that another layer that kind of gets lost in translation. It's interesting to see those things, but I think the fact that even though things like that do get lost in translation, the fact that the themes are so potent in this movie and a lot of the symbolism does come through to the Western audiences, I think that shows how powerful it is and in its delivery of that message.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, for example, like I can understand Hindi, and so when I watch like Bollywood films, for example, right? I completely agree that like a superficially and like on like an effective level, you don't really lose much when it comes to translation, right? Like we have good localization nowadays, like people know what they're doing in terms of translation, but like there's subtle like we also forget that there are like cultural details, right? Like the same words we read them with our like cultural background and our like perspectives, and then someone who like was grew up in Korea and has like a Korean background would experience like could understand those in slightly different or slightly different ways, you know what I mean? And so I always find it interesting on like when movies are still able to be so effective even when we don't have that cultural context, and I think it's really impressive, you know.
Totally.
Yeah. So I have a question. Were y'all surprised when Parasite won Best Picture?
Honestly, yeah.
I I agree.
I um I don't know, this probably is just a symptom of me seeing it really early,
Hmm.
maybe. But I don't know, when it was coming up for Oscars time, I heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, I think it'll win Best Picture," and I went no because I thought I was thinking
1917.
the hype's died down by now, and
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
movies like 1917, the hype was just starting to pick up, and you see a lot in previous years that movies that do win are the ones where like the hype picks up closer to the award show. If things come out too early,
For sure.
then it'll usually die down. But no, Parasite, it stayed on everyone's mind. It stayed relevant. Um, and after its win, I think it became even more relevant.
For sure. Jay, you just saw it recently, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so in retrospect, I'm not surprised that it won. Like, it looks to have the qualities that would make it a winning movie,
Hmm.
in that it's like both meaningful and also reasonably enjoyable.
For sure.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Like what's it called? How like did you watch it by yourself? Did you like get to watch it with some friends? Like how was it? What were your expectations going into it? Now having all this context, because like it's kind of great that all of us saw it at like these different times. Because like I find it interesting how differently the movie's being perceived in this short span of time, because of the background. So how is it like? How is it going into it very recently?
Hmm. I expected it to be good. I
Hmm.
So I wasn't especially surprised. I mean, the twist was surprising,
For sure.
sure, but like I expected the twist to be impactful. I just didn't expect the movie to go to shit as fast as it did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Like,
get it.
yeah.
Like, did you know a lot about the movie before you watched it?
No, I did not.
Interesting.
I tried
Okay,
to avoid spoilers as much as possible,
for sure. And
which was an
yeah,
interesting time.
I think that's really important. When watching this film, because I also went into it like not knowing anything about it. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was like some kind of like post-apocalyptic horror flick, and like so I was so confused when like it won Best Picture. I was like, now I need to watch this movie because I have no idea what it's about. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but I guess we can go sort of.
I can,
Oh, go
I
ahead. Go
just
ahead.
want to mention one more thing. I know we already mentioned that I got to see it early, which was definitely a privilege. But I think another thing that was so incredible about the screening I saw is I got to see it in a packed movie theater. Every single seat was sold out,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was kind of in the same boat that they were ready. Like we knew about the buzz from the Cannes Film Festival, and we were ready for it, but nobody really quite knew what was going to happen. And so seeing it with this full theater, there was an energy in there that I I'm sad that I'll never get to watch the movie with that same amount of energy and with that same amount of shock. Like when every twist and turn happened, like it was elevated so much because there was an audible reaction in that theater. every single time something happened. I'd say probably that audience was as into it as like seeing Infinity War, Avengers Endgame
Yeah, dude.
opening night when that happened. Like
Hmm.
that's how into it people were. That's how vocal people were, and it was an incredible experience. And I think it really heightened the suspense and the tension, and just made it an all around better experience
For
for
sure.
me. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. It was like literally. So I watched it with like a pretty large group of my friends in my dorm room, and so we all like it literally felt like a roller coaster ride. Like there were ups and downs, and it so much like happens, and it just like I think the pacing in the movie is like impeccable, right? Like
Oh yeah.
the action comes and like we get like these like rising tensions, and we get this like these climaxes and these releases at the perfect time every single time. And I think it's built so perfectly. So I guess I want to ask you guys, like, what are your favorite aspects of this movie? Like, is there anything you really love about it that you want to point out and talk about?
Um,
Hmm.
I I feel like it's not talked enough about part in movies, but I love the editing in it in
Mm-hmm.
particular. Um, I don't know. There's that one Nerdwriter video on like the perfect montage or whatever. Go
For sure.
watch that if you haven't seen it. But like you were talking about with the pacing, I think the editing just it brings this intensity and this efficiency to it it's so engaging to watch. And another aspect of it I loved a lot that isn't getting enough love is the acting. The
Mm-hmm.
acting was incredible, and it didn't get any acting nominations. I'm very upset about that. I think oh man, wait, I need to get the name of the actor. I feel bad for not doing it. But it was the father of the Kim family, the poor
Okay.
family.
Mm-hmm.
He's absolutely incredible,
Oh,
and wish I could
fantastic.
have seen him rewarded in some way performance.
No, I actually totally agree. The editing I feel like is a very like very underrated. I completely agree, and it's I think it links very well with like the cinematography, which is one of my favorite aspects of it. I think the scenes that linger and the scenes that are cut are like done so perfectly. Like for example, there's one scene where um the whole family is like laying under this table, right?
Yep.
And
Oh my
the
god.
Park mother and father are like right on the couch next to them, and uh, the Park son is outside in like a camping tent. It's raining, right? Um, and it literally like shows like a horizontal like view, and you can just see like the family underneath the table, just like clenching each other, like worried, and you can just like see a perfect like side view of everything going on, and you get like that feeling of intensity, like almost like and it puts you lower down on that level, so that you feel like you're in that cramped space just like them, and it's
Mm.
like you feel so attached to that family, like you feel like you're in their shoes the entire movie, and I think it's really great, and
Mhm.
it's honestly credit to the editing, because like that's what puts you in their shoes.
Yeah. The actor's name is King Ho Song, by the way.
King Husan. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Jay, do you have any part that you'd like to bring attention to, any aspect of the film?
Hmm. I enjoyed how quickly. I don't know. I feel like I alluded to this, but I enjoyed how quickly the entire situation with with when they discover the old housekeeper's wife or
Mm-hmm.
well husband
Husband, yeah.
husband in the basement. I can remember gender. Don't worry about that. Uh, because it's you have no expectation that it's going to go badly that quickly,
Mm-hmm.
but it does, and it's even brought up within the movie that like there's a peaceful resolution to this, just that no one follows it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, yeah, that sort of goes into the pacing, right? And it's like, um, I totally agree, because it all like I literally describe it as going from like 0 to 100, but you don't feel that shift. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's in a lot of movies, it'll all of a sudden everything will go crazy, and you'll be like, why did that happen? That doesn't make any sense, right?
Mhm.
And
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
but like in this movie, nothing felt like too wacky or wild or out of place. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it shifts genres seamlessly. Like that's what it's doing. This film is so many different genres and it switches between them so effortlessly.
Hmm.
And having done some screenwriting myself, I like that is probably one of the most difficult things is balancing genre and making that shift seamless. Like going from a comedy to a thriller to to a heist film, being all these things and balancing that is one of the biggest feats of this movie. I
Hmm.
just want to put that in there so you can continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh yeah, no. Seriously, don't worry about it because that really like makes me like actually like think now because I never really considered like that's actually what's happening. And so I guess the question is like I want to ask you guys what genre would you put on this movie? I'm not actually sure I know what the official genre is, but like if you had to assign a genre, what would it be and why?
My first thought is a heist film.
Heist. Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, just like that. That's what it feels like
Hmm.
for just in terms of structure, because it's like they have the plan, the setup, the actual execution, where it's like they put themselves in this household. Um, you've got some great montages in there of them doing that, and then you have kind of the downfall of that heist.
Hmm.
It's sort of like a reverse heist in a way. It's weird, but I feel like that's what it most fits in structurally.
Hmm. Jay, what do you think?
I agree with that explanation. It makes sense.
A heist film? Interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Al- hmm.
go ahead, go
Although
ahead.
I'm not sure if there's a predominant. Saying there's a predominant genre to it just seems, I don't know, inaccurate if I had to
I
pick a
mean,
word for it.
it
But sure.
undercuts the feat of the film,
Hmm.
which
I
is
agree.
that it is no genre in all these genres all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get that because like there's aspects of it that you can see like sort of like a romance film, you know what I mean? Like with the
Romance.
no, dude, with the freaking Kim Sun and the Park daughter, like their prevailing
Oh
interactions
yeah,
throughout the
yeah.
entire thing, and like how she still like cares for him, like breaks that class's barrier there, and like
Okay,
their connection, and then at the same time you get like drama between each of the families within themselves and these underlying dramas with each other. Like there are so many aspects of so many different genres that all interact at the same time. And so
hmm.
like it not just does it hop between genres seamlessly, it blends genres while doing that as well.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. This is actually something I find really interesting that I want to just comment on
Mhm.
with like that the relationship between the daughter and the son.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, when I first saw it, the age difference, it's weird,
Mhm. Yeah,
especially for a Western audience. And
for sure.
I was like, this is very strange. I don't know how, like, but obviously it was a different culture, so I was a little like, I didn't know. I wasn't quite sure, and then I mentioned it to my friend who is actually from South Korea, and it was very interesting. Here, what he said to me is that that's actually like extremely common in South Korea that romantic relationships will occur between students and their tutors, and that it's like not uncommon for that to be how a lot of people find their spouses in South Korea. And he said, yeah, it does happen like with that age gap, which
Mhm.
in a west in our Western culture, I was like, yeah, the age gap
Mhm.
was it was strange, and I'm not here to judge other cultures,
For sure.
but yes, but I just think that was a
Yeah.
very interesting thing because something that me as a Western audience member found very jarring about the film, somebody of from an Eastern audience sees as something very normal and natural that in this film, just thinking from the screenwriting perspective, when they wrote that in, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna write this in as like this very jarring thing that's happening. It's just like, oh, that's
Mhm.
something that happened in our society.
Exactly. And I like that goes back to like that whole like cultural context. And like it's crazy to think that like this movie even with like, aspects like that exactly like a Western audience found jarring. The movie was still able to like keep its cool and like still appeal to both sides, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What's it called? Is there anything else? Like, do you guys have any favorite scenes in the film that you want to talk about, or like scenes that like maybe surprise you the most, scenes that confused you, scenes that you guys want to like think have like a strong message or something?
Jay,
Yeah, Jay.
Okay.
I want to give
I don't
Jay
know. I
more
feel like I've
mouth
already
to talk.
mentioned this, but okay. Between how suddenly the movie shifts from something that is just like between a somewhat non-confrontational situation
Mm-hmm.
to um basically immediately afterward. This is the first thing that surprises me, but also the ending scene.
Endings.
I did not the ending scene where
Mm-hmm.
basically
Yeah,
where
yeah. Where
the
the
yeah
husband rampages. Yeah.
yeah I was very surprised that this happened. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I feel like I was not reading cues that he would that the housekeeper's husband wasn't mentally entirely there. If I'm
Yeah.
being honest,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
So what's it called? I guess like, did you expect that? Like, did you expect that to happen? If not, like,
I mean, I expected something bad to happen. I wasn't sure what specifically it would be, but I expected something to happen.
interesting, interesting. Um, I honestly that scene kind of like even now I don't think I really understand like the point of like all like the of him specifically doing like murdering the people he did. Like what I do understand is I understood when the father of the Kim family kills the father of the Park family because he feels like that personal disrespect when they were under that table earlier talking about the smell of like you know impoverished people, and like you get those like underlying classist themes, and like to make a statement, he like even as Mr. Park is running away, like from this like this murderous scene, he still like wipes his like handkerchief and like all of this at like the blood of like this poorer person, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's but
Um,
what's it called? I'm curious, what do you guys think is like I don't really personally think I understand the underlying theme of like the husband of that old housemaid killing the people he did.
I I think the theme of that is that um I mean the Kim family throughout the film, it's like they're obviously extreme poor, but they still have something to some degree. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
still had their house and they still had their clothes. I mean, they lost their house
Yeah.
at a point in the movie, but they had things. The 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 husband of the housekeeper and the housekeeper herself after she loses her job, um it's that they don't have anything, and the reason that he kills the daughter at the end is that he really has nothing left to lose, and that's sort of to
Interesting.
serve as like a juxtaposition of the Kim family, where it's like
They
even
have
though
everything
they
to
they don't
lose.
have much,
Mm-hmm.
they still have something to lose, whereas this guy doesn't have anything to lose, and they're dangerously the gap between the two um the two families, the Kim family and the family of the housekeeper,
Mm-hmm.
they're so dangerously close, but there is this line that the Kim family has crossed yet, and he has, and because of that, he has nothing to lose, and that's why he kills. And obviously, the father of the Kim family, he afterwards decides to kill him as a result of that decision.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes like the housekeeper, that he doesn't have anything, and just like him, he goes underground.
Interesting. Interesting. I oh that actually brings up exactly what I wanted to talk about. So, the parallels in this movie I feel like are one of the most interesting aspects of it. Right, this constant theme of like give and take. Right, like things happening to one family happening to another, or things happening to one person happening to another in a slightly different way. Right, and so one of my favorite
Give an
scenes
example.
is actually um like do you guys remember when their village was flooding and all of the houses were filling up with water, this that everybody's houses were destroyed and their clothes ruined and all of these things, and they had to go the next day, and what's it called Yeah, they had to go the next day and like give away all their clothes. Um, or sorry, no, they had to like go the next day and like get new clothes from this like this charity thing, and they were sleeping on the ground and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they like throughout this scene, this is the scene when the park mother is getting ready for her son's party,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so she's taught like in she's like in her closet looking through all of these clothes while the Kim family is looking through this charity pile for old like clothes that like lost and found clothes that they can wear. You know what I mean?
I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah, and
That was
Oh,
cool.
there's additional symbolism there actually as well.
oh, do you want to talk about that? Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Park family are discussing how nice all the rain is,
Hmm.
which is juxtaposed with the rain having destroyed the Kim family's house
Yeah,
at the same
exactly.
time.
Yeah,
Mm.
no, it's yeah, exactly. Now that you mentioned that, it's like she's talking about how beautiful of day it is outside of this. Saw a rainbow yesterday, all of this stuff, right? And like Mr. Kim is literally driving the car, listening to her say this, and like um, and you can see her in the back. I'm pretty sure she was like plugging her nose, or like she opened the window because of
Yeah.
his smell, and like that just shows like what happened to one person affected this. They affected both people just in these completely different ways, and I think the movie really nails how like how every single thing that happens to us that may benefit us, we have to remember that like that there's constant give and take in the world. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was probably like the most effective theme for me personally. That's like one of the biggest messages I got out of it. What do you guys think was like the most powerful message that you guys took away from this film?
I don't know if this is like the message of the film
Mm-hmm.
per se, but just like a quote that's really stuck with me from that film that I think about a lot is when I think it's the mom says it's either the father or the mom, one of them says the Kim family says
Mm-hmm.
but the Park family is so nice, and the other one goes, yeah, because they can afford to be nice, and something about that just really stuck with,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like
Yeah, because she
I don't know,
says,
it just
"Hell,
seems
I'd be nice if I was rich too," right?
yeah.
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 I think it's a really it brings up a really interesting question. It's like, is that true to some degree? I can see how it's true, but also like do we think that this character, if she was rich, would would she be nice, or would she still kind of try and use that, try and justify her way of like, oh, I'm justified in not being this like goody two shoes
Mm,
nice person, like.
interesting.
So I think it's unclear whether that quote is in effect like
Reflective of her
them saying
character. Yeah.
them saying a factor, yeah, or kind of showing their character, exposing their character as being these inherently bad people. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
another really interesting thing, a theme of the movie is
Mm-hmm.
like, are like are people inherently bad, inherently good, or is that a product of people's socioeconomic status? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in if we say it is a product of the socioeconomic status, I mean, we do see that in the film. That's like the housekeeper's family that has absolutely nothing. They're probably the worst because the guy obviously did go and murder the daughter, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have the Kim
I don't
family that
I don't agree with
infiltrate this
that.
other family. What do you say?
I don't think the housekeeper's family as a whole are worse.
Mm,
I think the
interesting.
housekeeper's
Hmm.
husband is worst, but this also
Uh,
may be just I'm not sure if he's supposed to be read as like insane or not.
I mean,
If he is,
to Nico's point, like if you consider the husband the worst, he's the one who's also had it worst, right? He's the one who's had
mhm.
to have food brought to him
yeah,
and like didn't even have this like caring household. Like the person who's like socioeconomic or like living status was also the worst happened to like will also ended up being the worst person and to like be
yes.
the most deranged, you know?
But then, so are his actions justified,
Mm-hmm.
or is he still just a bad person? And then in that, going with that logic, if we say, oh, even if like it's because of his socioeconomic status, he's still just a bad person, then in effect, you're just saying, well, all poor people are bad people. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if they kind of like, as a product of their socioeconomic status, they don't act how society wants them to act. And it's like, if you are under those socioeconomic status, then, I mean, is it really fair to expect that person to kind of go above and beyond to act like they are,
Mm-hmm.
like the people who do have nice things in society?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I mean, there's no one answer. It's a very nuanced question and
Mm-hmm.
theme, but I think that's what makes film so powerful, is that we can have this conversation.
Exactly. And uh no, I totally get where you're coming from, and like I think part of the beauty of it is that like there's not really a right answer to that question, right? It's
Mhm.
like and like especially depending on the context that you were raised in, like you will have a different answer. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of people even now, right, who are like, it's okay for people of a certain kind or who come from a certain place to do certain things, right? Like you've all heard like you know, like black people can't be racist, right? Like we've all heard like
Mhm.
that before, because like, depending on the context that people come from, they think that certain things can be excused or certain things are okay when the same thing would not be considered okay by somebody from a different context. And like I think the issue is that it's so malleable and it's so contextual, this movie really capitalizes off of that, right? It's like it capitalizes on the fact that like no matter what way you interpret it, somebody else will interpret it differently, and so the movie will affect each person differently, you know?
I think a great takeaway to get from this movie is exactly what you were saying. You can't really generalize
Mm-hmm.
people of a certain socioeconomic status or of a certain group. I mean, like this, if you can take anything from this movie, it's kind of like choose, like you need to like determine um morality based on the context in the specific
Mm-hmm.
situation. I mean, I can't just look at the Kim family and say, "Oh, all poor people
Mm-hmm.
are like this," and look at the Park family and say, "Oh, all rich people are like this. They're ignorant and they're
Gullible and this and that.
gullible."
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't kind of make those generalizations, and I think that's what the
Mm-hmm.
movie speaks against. And I think if you take any that.
Yeah, really. Jay, do you have any like what message do you think you took away most effectively from this movie, or like what do you think it's trying to say? Even if it's not what it's trying to say, what do you think impacted you personally the most?
I mean, the message I got out of the movie was that there's a practical limit to how much anyone will tolerate,
Mm-hmm.
and beyond this point, they become unpredictable. Like, which is a callous way of looking at it, but it also, I think, holds true.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to expand on that?
I mean, sure, like you cannot. If you look at the Kim family, for example, like the father is only willing to put up with so much derision and like criticism for something that he can't control
Mm-hmm.
before he kills
Yeah.
the Park family's father.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as if he can I mean, this was reasonably predictable was going to happen. You said this earlier. Like you expected this part.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this just tells me that you can reasonably predict when or to what extent you can push them before they break.
Interesting. I
Or at
think
least that there is a point.
I find that actually really interesting to talk about like how everybody has an inherent limit, right? And like we don't know
Mhm.
how our actions or how like even our like subtleties, right? Our subconscious non-verbal communication, the impact it has on people, right? And like also to understand that like everybody still has a certain amount that they can take, you know? And like we should be I think another important message is like we should be conscious about our about the nonverbal or like subconscious messages we send in the things we do in the ways we act, right? Because like whether we're wealthy, whether we're not wealthy, the things we do, we don't really know the impacts they have on other people, right? In this film, we saw an example of how the actions are like how like some unintentional actions by like the wealthy Park family, how they affected and demeaned and hurt the Kim family, right? And then how the Kim family took that out in having this symbiotic parasitic relationship with the Park family, taking advantage of them, right? And so, but
Oh
like,
my god, it's almost like they were Parasite.
whoa, that's the name of the show.
Whoa, that theme goes in two
The show.
directions.
The
No,
movie.
movie. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's I think another important message is like to be conscious about how we present ourselves and how other people receive or interpret the things we do, because we don't
In
know our effects.
yeah. In woke terms, check your privilege.
In woke terms, check your privilege indeed. So I want to ask, are there any aspects of this movie that you guys like are a little critical about? Any things you guys didn't enjoy or would have liked to see done better or improved?
I don't know. That's
I
a
have
really
trouble
tough
finding
question.
anything individually.
Hmm.
Like it works cohesively, so I don't really especially mind anything.
Yeah, I could see
It
that.
was a really great film.
Hmm.
However, as I know, you and me, Salaar, were
Hmm.
taught, or you and I.
Yeah.
Both are
So I
correct.
know you'll call me out on that.
Wait, both of those are correct.
Talked about before. What?
Both of
I
those are
think they're both
correct.
fine. Yeah.
It's just you can't do like me and my blank.
Okay. Anyway. I don't feel like it's a 10 out of 10. I
Hmm.
feel like it's a 9 out of 10.
Interesting.
I know, controversial opinion.
Hmm.
I'm not really sure where that one gets lost, but something for me, it's like it's a great film. It's very close to a 10 out of 10.
Hmm.
But there's just something that's like, ooh,
For me, in my opinion,
it's not quite Godfather level.
I get
But
that. No, I get that. And for me, I think I can
Mhm.
I think I might be able to put a finger on what I think is the one that's being lost, or like maybe even the point five that's being lost, right? Like I can't really numerically assign how much I think this like degrades the movie, but like I think that there are some points where like the themes of like classism are like a little bit on the nose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there are parts of it where it's like for example, like when the what's it called? When the Park mother is holding her nose and like opening the window and stuff like that. It's like, yes, we get it. He smells like crap, right? And like, and that's bad, and that's because he's poor and like it wasn't the crap water, right? It's like, um, there are aspects of it where it's sort of like, we get it that they're poor and like we get it that you're rich, right? And so there's some parts where I feel like they could have had a little more subtlety, but at the same time, I think that like having it a little bit on the nose sort of added to this idea of like ignorance
Hmm.
from the Park family of like not even like understanding that they that like how obvious they were acting, and that sort
Yeah.
of feeds into the message of classism in like an effective way. And so
Hmm.
like at the end of the day, it's like I don't really know what the intent was by the director, and so it really depends on whether like what they were trying to do, which like I won't ever really know. And I think that uncertainty is what gives it a 9 out of 10, right? It's like
Yeah.
when you have a 10 out of 10 movie, you know exactly what everything meant. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so I think for me that like a little bit of confusion on like was this what they meant or was this what they meant? Um, I think that like very very subtle confusion in the true message and like clarity and direction of the film is what just knocks it a little bit for me. You know what I mean?
I
Uh,
I think for me, I'm trying to I'm trying to put I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into terms, but I think the best I can explain what knocks that one away from me is that the world they live in terms of like socioeconomic status, feels very like black and white, where it's like, oh,
hmm.
you have this family, they are the rich.
Hmm.
You have this family, they are the poor, and there's really like
No
no
depth to it.
middle there's no middle class to be seen in the movie. Yeah, I feel like it's a kind of like, and I know that films are supposed to be kind of like, just like a small little snapshot of society,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like it does feel like it lacks some depth. It kind of it's just narrows society down to, oh, there are two types of people. There's the ultra wealthy, and then there's the poor, and then maybe the ultra poor
Yeah.
just below them. And it feels there's something about that feels very like French Revolution-y. And
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact like that's probably not what society is actually like. There are definitely people like there definitely is that divide, but
Mm-hmm.
there is still a middle class. Um and also I think kind of building on that, the movie, it's so focused on these two families, which I mean it should be. I mean
Mm-hmm.
that lends itself to efficient storytelling. If you made the changes like for what I'm saying, there
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would be a better film. But it just feels a little bit like I don't really feel the world outside of these two families
Mm-hmm.
enough. Like
I
I
agree.
don't I can't really get enough of a sense of like what the city they live in is actually like,
Mm-hmm.
and like what their neighbors are like, and what how are these people seen by bystanders, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
getting that point of view. It feels very I don't feel like I get a big enough snapshot of the world
I get
that
it.
I would have liked.
I could see that. I mean, like, do we even know what town they're in? Like, did they say it at some point? I think maybe they
I
have.
have no clue. At some points in the movie, it looks like a city, and then at other points, it kind of looks like a small town.
Yeah, it's a.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Hmm. So Jay, would you consider this movie a 10 out of 10?
No, I mean the fact that I can't point anything specifically that's wrong doesn't necessarily mean that like it's a 10. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. What makes a movie a 10 for me is more so like everything is perfect
Mm-hmm.
and I don't get the sense that something is slightly off at all.
Okay, so is there like anything that you would have liked to have like more clarity, or is there like any general theme or like general aspect of it that you thought like that feels even like a little bit off?
I mean, upon you bringing it up, yeah, I feel like the world could have been better built.
Mm-hmm.
It there just wasn't enough exposition on. I wouldn't say exposition because
Mm-hmm.
exposition implies like boringness and just talking at you,
Yeah.
but there wasn't enough like information provided about the world beyond the two contrasts.
Yeah. And like I get.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. No, that's what I was saying. Like who knows? Maybe there was a previous draft of it that did have that sort of context for the
Mm-hmm.
world, but they eliminated those scenes to make it a more efficient film, to
Yeah.
make it more fast paced and more entertaining. And if it was the other way around, I mean, who's to say
It
that
wouldn't
we
have gotten
wouldn't
more derailed and stuff. Yeah.
that we wouldn't that we could be here right now saying, "Oh yeah, I like." I mean, the bits about kind of like giving context for the world were interesting, but I wish they would have chopped those out so it would have been a faster film and not 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
I don't
mean,
know.
so
Like I did see like some aspects of like world building like near the beginning when they were when they introduced you to the Kim son's like friend who like did this, who was like already a tutor, and like that like pizza delivery store that was going out of business because the town's not doing well socioeconomically, and like but like they never really revisited those, and like we never really saw like how maybe this interaction between these two families was impacting other things. You know what I mean? Like we saw semblances of this external world and like other people interacting with these families, but then sort of once it went and narrowed down, like if it wasn't for like this rainstorm, we probably wouldn't have seen any other families or people throughout the entire film. You know what I mean?
yeah, I hear you.
Um, and so I would agree that like at the end of the day, I think that I think it was still very effective and cohesive. But I do agree like I am personally I think it did deserve that best picture win.
Yeah.
Even
Oh,
even being a 9 out of 10,
totally.
or like a 9.5 out of 10, whatever whatever arbitrary number I want to assign to it. Um, I think the message was still strong, and I think the movie itself was just an experience. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whatever critiques we make about it, or like even if it's
Nitpicks.
not the most perfect film we've ever seen, I still think it is a landmark in film history, and I can say that as of right now because of what it's doing currently, what I know it's going to do for opening up Western audiences to more foreign language films. And I think just for doing that, I think it's an incredible accomplishment. And even if it's not 10 out of 10, it's still 9 out of 10, and I don't give out 9 out of 10s lightly. I think it's still a master. I still think it's a masterpiece of a film. I still think it's Bong Joon-ho's magnum opus, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And just what it's doing in its place in the cultural landscape right now, I think you have to give it so much credit for that. It's truly incredible.
Mm-hmm. So, do you guys? I guess we can just go into like some final thoughts now. Any last like things we want to say about the movie, about anything else? Jay, do you have anything you want to say about this film? Anything you feel like you've left out?
I mean, I feel like I touched most of what I wanted to speak on, but I did enjoy. I don't know. I enjoyed the commentary on classism, and I found it interesting how many people did not notice the commentary on classism, and then realized they liked the
Wait,
movie.
what?
Really?
I have
Who didn't notice the
a
themes
friend of mine
classism?
didn't notice the commentary on classism at all and liked it.
Wow.
Okay, well,
like,
you're also
political
going to engineering school, so
That's funny. He said
So-
you're also in STEM, so like you know.
Oh no, I don't know. You see, this is an adult who is not a college student.
Oh,
So-
interesting.
Oh,
That's
that's,
pretty
um,
great.
Yeah.
I mean, but no, I totally get that. Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Like, I just thought it was impressive. Honestly, it was just like, no matter how you want to watch the movie, it's just like a fun, just like a fun, crazy, wacky heist type film. Or if you want to look at it in a deep manner and like really look into it, like you can enjoy this film in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And like that's something that's really hard to accomplish, and like especially for a foreign language film to be able to accomplish that for a Western audience that in all honesty is very unreceptive and uninterested in engaging with foreign films and like foreign like filmmaking practices and cultures. I think that it was, again, I completely agree with you, Nico, that it was a landmark title in that aspect. But Nico, do you have any final thoughts?
the dad of the Park family would bang.
Wood bang, excellent. So I guess we'll end it off there for today. Thank you all so much for listening. I know it's been a while since we recorded a podcast, but yeah, thanks to this whole coronavirus outbreak thing, we are all stuck at home, being responsible citizens and quarantining ourselves. So please leave down in the comments below what you'd like us to talk about. We also have a Discord server that you're welcome to join if you'd like to get updates on our uploads and when we're recording and suggest topics. But overall, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. And all right, we'll see you all later. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All summer and after